Whatever. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Don't Call This a Podcast. I am your host, Ryan McLaughlin, and what has seems like it's been forever since we were last doing a regular show. If you joined us, what was it, 2 weeks ago? We got interrupted by Thanksgiving, but if you joined us, you got our interview with Sophie and with goodness, gosh, John Hammond.
Hammondtree. Right, John Hammondtree.
I didn't want to mess up his last name. That's what I was scared of. That's what I was like cowering away in fear from. But yeah, if you've seen our last couple episodes, you've seen the interviews we've done. Of course, we did our live review or live broadcast of the presidential election. And so we've all had to take a break because it was a lot. There's a lot going on. But we're here to sort of finish out our mini series as we kind of round the corner and get to the January runoffs with Georgia, where Raphael Warnock is facing off against Kelly Loeffler, and John Ossof is facing off against David Perdue.
And so Ryan and I are already tired.
Already exhausted.
Living in Georgia. I hate everyone that's not in Georgia right now. I'm sorry to both you and Ron and Brandon, but I just, if you're not in Georgia, I have beef with you. Don't talk to me.
I live in Georgia with my job. Georgia is one of my states for work, so I feel like I live in Georgia.
Well, Brandon, how have you been? We haven't talked to you in a long time.
Right.
I have been good. I'm much better now. Thank you. How have you been?
I've been good. Can't complain. Drinking more sugar right now than I've had in probably a few weeks. But
Brandon looks significantly less tired.
Significantly less tired.
Like you look so just like refreshed.
Yeah, I am. But the election's over, thankfully, so things are winding down and ramping up at the same time. Back for Georgia, these Senate runoffs. So let's get it.
Yeah. Also with us is, of course, Mr. Ronald McDonald, Ronnie Harris himself. What's happening?
Quick shout out. Shout out to the 1A champions, Linden High School Patriots. Shout out to Marengo County. Without looking, Marengo County probably has the most championships of any county in Alabama. I think we're at 17 right now. Shout out to Linden High School.
Shout out to Anna, too.
Shout out to Anna Beto, my good friend. Yeah.
I know her man is he's a coach on the team, but I don't know what his role is. He head coach?
He's the head coach. Yeah.
He's the head coach. So yeah, shout out to Anna. Shout out to Anna and the family, and the baby boy. So yes, Courtney, of course, is with us. Courtney and I took up screen time in the beginning. Her Christmas.
Because I will never know peace because I was an Alabama voter for Doug Jones and Roy Moore, and now I'm here for another special election. I will never know peace from people who think that their part in doing work is just bothering residents of battleground states. Leave me alone.
Well, speaking of which, let's talk about these runoffs. I am so tired of seeing the same commercials over and over and over again.
I like Warnock's commercials. I don't mind them. The puppy is cute.
I want to get into that because Warnock seems to be taking a different strategy. Who knew that actually calling out your opponent on their lack of, what's the word I'm looking for, actual plans would be a good campaign strategy. So if you haven't seen it, I probably should have queued these up so people could watch it. But if you haven't seen it, Raphael Warnock has laid out a very detailed advertising plan, right? Right when he went to the runoff, he released an ad that basically made fun of attack ads, saying that he doesn't like puppies and that he once stepped on a crack and that he eats pizza with a knife and a fork. And it was to poke fun at the idea that the attack ads were coming. And he explicitly says this in the ad, that attack ads were coming. Well, lo and behold, Kelly Loeffler fell for the play action and released attack ads about Warnock that had nothing to do with any of his policies and were very heavily racially charged.
Extremely. Like every time Michael and I see it, we're like, dog whistle, dog whistle, dog whistle. And we're just like,
racist white people. Let me give you a tip for free. The one place you don't want to go at, Ebenezer Baptist Church. Leave that alone. Don't mention it. Just leave that alone.
You were just there.
I mean, it's not like Kelly Loeffler can handle it. She's never been elected. So she doesn't really know how to do it. Right. So it's her first time.
So I want to double back to that in a second because, like I said, she fell for Warnock's bait because Warnock then comes back, and I'm going to pull this up while you're talking so we can share it. But Warnock then comes back with an ad that basically says, see, I told you it was coming. Kelly Loeffler doesn't want to talk about the issues, like why she is not for public health care option, why she is not for expanded aid for coronavirus relief. all these different things that he hit her on, and she fell right for it. So, Brandon, being that you're the premier strategist in the room,
the expert,
Loeffler was somebody who tried to play the moderate suburban white woman role. Quickly realized in her race with Collins that wasn't going to work, but now she's stuck there. Can she go back, or is she stuck with this strategy?
No, I think she can go back. I just don't know how effective it'll be. Looking at polls today, what Warnock is up 52-45. That's compared to John Ossof at 50-48 against Perdue, right? Like that's Ossof is well within the polls margin of error at 5.2%. So I saw some stats I'll read them off. Of Perdue runoff voters, 90% stay with Loeffler, 10% are vulnerable. Of Ossof runoff voters, 97% vote for Warnock, just 3% are vulnerable. And of those who voted for Trump in the November election, 97% of the vote for Perdue, while 94% vote for Loeffler. So like she can make all those attack ads, especially if she wants to target her base, which I think this is what this election will turn out to be. But if you're talking about getting moderates to join your side or independent swing voters, it's not going to happen. So for me, I think the strategy overall is just the base, and you can see it in the ads, right? Republicans, Democrats seem emboldened by their performance in the general, and I think they take that as an indication that one, they have the momentum, and two, they can eke out a win in the state that hadn't voted for a Democrat since Clinton's first presidential term, right? So I think both sides' strategy need to be drive out the base, period. And I think this is also the reason Donald Trump's messaging matters here, and why Senate Republicans can't seem to find their spines. So I think Democrats, Loeffler can do whatever she wants to do in terms of those attack ads. They're not going to work, especially not against Warnock. But I think Democrats need to do a couple things. They need to turn this race into a national campaign and a referendum on Donald Trump, and the do-nothing Republicans in Congress, who frankly don't deserve to govern. And another thing I saw recently, I think it was on CNN, was the idea that Biden could transition or move his transition headquarters from Wilmington, because who the fuck is there, and to Atlanta, and make this and keep the focus squarely on those two races.
Huh. Like, now that I think about it, okay. Because since Ryan is off screen, I'm actually going to jump ahead, but I think Trump's strategy right now, and Ryan, I don't know if you want to take it there right now, but basically the aftermath of the election, I actually think he's doing more damage by focusing on this Georgia election, or even making himself present, because we now know that Georgia Secretary of State said there were thousands of voters who would have voted for Trump using mail-in ballots, because that's the way in which they voted during the primaries, but they did not vote in the general election because they were listening to Trump and they did not trust, mail-in ballots, mail-in voting. So I think Trump is effectively like really screwing up like the chances of those two Republican candidates in Georgia right now. And personally, I love it. Like, keep doing that. Keep up the great work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do want to, before we go further, I do want to play this ad, because I think it gives a lot of context for those who haven't seen it. Like, if you don't live in Georgia, you probably haven't seen this ad. It's not anything it has gotten some social media attention. But it's
all over YouTube. Like, they're killing it with the placement of their ads, in my opinion.
I want to play this real quick.
We told them the smear ads were coming, and that's exactly what happened. You would think that Kelly Loeffler might have something good to say about herself if she really wants to represent Georgia. Instead, she's trying to scare people by taking things I've said out of context from over 25 years of being a pastor. But I think Georgians will see her ads for what they are. Don't you? I'm Raphael Warnock, and we approve this message.
It's genius. I just think it's genius. It's genius is what it is.
It's like this like
That's how you're gonna get like the people that are like unsure, but like because you're making yourself really likable.
Yeah.
So and one thing too that I've noticed in his ads that they're really honing in on is just not very smart. It's just kind of ironic they did this, saying that this is the special election, that both Perdue and Loeffler were caught with insider trading in January. And Georgia's like one of the worst hit states of COVID. I don't have the exact numbers, but especially early on. And the fact that they both knew in January and they're both up for those Senate seats, like I'm really glad that Ossof and Warnock are hitting that. They're just hitting that point home that they knew. So I think they really fucked themselves over. That's one thing. It's the same thing about the Republicans just like being so against any kind of stimulus bill or anything. Because if they just would have handled this any better from a strategic point, I think things would have gone a lot more in their favor. So exactly that too.
I love the different ways we are labeling the pandemic, like during the platypus.
But right, but it's just that it's just hilarious, and it does like that. Just the Republicans just cannot help themselves strategically at this point. And I think one thing that's hurting Loeffler is that Trump very outspokenly does not like her, and it has said that she's not who she wanted. So she needs to really focus. I don't think she's going to be able to get centrist and the Trump supporters who don't want to vote. She's not going to be able to do both. Like, I don't know what you think about that, Brandon, but I just don't see from a strategy point where you're able to pull them both at the same time.
No, I agree. That's exactly why I say you have to drive out the base. Like, this is a base election, and Democrats get the people that were registered out to vote. They have a good chance of winning at least one of these seats, especially because of what Ron said about Donald Trump suppressing his vote, which is just idiotic to say the least. But that would expect from Donald Trump, right?
Yeah. One thing I will give credit to, I don't know about you, Ryan, but two places that I have been getting constant mail and just to like vote. Hey, we are mailing you like applications is one, the Georgia NAACP, like constant mail from them. So good on them. And then I forget who it was, because they're who I registered to vote with when I moved here, because I guess they said new resident stuff is like the voting register. I forget the name of them, but this organization is just trying to get people registered to vote. My mail is over there. I'm not going to get up to get it, but they are sending us a lot of mail too. But I do wonder why the Georgia Democratic Party isn't sending more stuff, because my former neighbor was a Trump supporter and they're sending way more stuff than the actual Democratic Party is here. So I'm wondering what the hell they're doing. Anyway,
one thing I have noticed with that is I think a lot of what they're doing is through these other organizations, right? One thing that I have been very happy to see, as much as it kind of annoys me when I check my mail and I've got 5 absentee ballot applications. Like that to me is it's a little annoying, but at the same time, I'm happy. Like it's a good annoyance to have, right? One thing that I want to point out, and Ron hinted at something that I think is really important here. He kind of talked about it. I think do I have an echo? Okay. No, let's make sure I don't have an echo. One thing that Ron talked about, and I want to highlight it, is Trump is actively suppressing his base, but he's also making things worse for Kemp and Raffensperger when 2022 rolls around. He is actively, by having these really terrible court cases where he's losing all of them, having these whole 46-minute fits on Twitter or whatever, where he's just saying things are rigged. He really is sitting at this point where he's putting the Republicans in a crosshair, right? Like he's saying either you support everything I do or I really burn it down. And the Republicans have hitched themselves so hard to this wagon in an effort to get their judges, in an effort to, whatever businesses that they have or are aligned with, in an effort to keep them, keep the money flow going. They've been siding with them. Like it's all these different things that they've done where they could have just ran a competent government, right? Like Republicans, as Courtney hinted at, could have sat up here in March and said, or February, and said, This thing is coming. We need to pay people to stay home to mitigate the spread, so we can increase testing. We can have all these things in place that we need, so that in a couple of weeks we can open back up. And then when we open,
they didn't even have to do it fully. Like they at least could have just pretended.
Mandate.
They could have just pretended. Like, at least give people another stimulus. Like, I remember saying on the podcast, I was like convinced that they're going to drop a stimulus like right before the election. Like, it'll be a chess move. It would have been a smart chess move. I hear an echo, but they didn't do that, because it's just like, you really hate poor people more than you want to win. Like, that was the most mind-blowing. I was like, okay, there are people like Mitch McConnell, I'm convinced he's not stupid. He's one of the sinister ones, but a lot of them are just so dumb that it's just like, but that's why they have to use voter suppression to win. But yeah, it was I just wanted to correct myself. It was I just had it, the voter participation center. So good on them for teaming up with the NAACP. This is actually really great, and it has a lot of public health information. And they're sending out a lot of stuff, but not to where it's annoying. It's actually really helpful. But I'm going to be voting in person, because I don't believe in taking chances.
Same here.
Right.
If you are
about him screwing over Republicans, because one, we have to remember Trump is driving out all of these votes, right? He's driving out the turnout on his side, which is credit to him. But he won't be on the ballot in 2022.
Right. That's the point. That's the point I want to make, right? Because when we go back to 2018 and we look at the 2018 midterms, and we look at those districts that those House districts that a lot of Democrats flipped, they flipped those districts because Trump wasn't on it. He wasn't turning out his base. And so what turned around in 2020, and what a lot of people got wrong, is they didn't recognize how much his turnout or his name matters. So in those districts that were more purple or more red leaning, where we weren't, quote unquote, shouldn't have won in 2018, it flipped back to what it was and went back to the mean, right? And so if he's created these basically these voters that only support him, right? And they don't show up in January because they think it's all rigged, because he said that. If he starts this whole campaign for 2024, and he does this whole, if he's not in jail, and does this whole spiel where he does these media tours, I'm gonna put it up in a second, all of that kind of stuff.
We're not laughing at Ryan. I just want to say, because we see comments, but anyway, keep going.
But if he does these things where he says, I'm coming in 2024, whatever the case may be, we have 4 years to build up our House seats, build up our Senate seats, because I guarantee you that those people that he is able to energize, they're not going to show up in 22. So if we can create a big enough gap to where when he does show up and Republicans do inch back some, we're not giving up ground and giving up a majority should we retain the presidency, then there we go. But it's so damaging to their party right now, because as I said, there's a split coming, right? Or there is a split, and it depends on how long it lasts. There's going to be the Trump Republicans, the real goofballs like your Matt Gaetz,
QAnon people,
exactly, the Marjorie Taylor Greene and whatever her name is, all those people, and then you're gonna have the Mitt Romneys and the Susan Collins and all of them. So what happens with this split as time goes on? That's what I'm interested in seeing.
So a few things. First,
I have a few things too.
First, I like the Eagles do suck, and I personally, like, I've never been a fan of Carson Wentz. Let me put that out there.
We were laughing at, by the way.
He is tearing apart the offense. But what I was going to say, I think what we're about to see now is something, for like a better terms, we can call the Jeff Sessions effect. Basically, you've emboldened yourself. You made this your identity, your loyalty to Trump. And now Trump is going to say, like, oh, you're useless now. I have no need for you.
No loyalty, no return loyalty.
Which is exactly what he's doing with someone like Brian Kemp. So Brian Kemp's out of here when he runs for governor next. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or another Republican. He's out of here.
It's also because he can't use the Secretary of State position to
that too.
Well. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. Like, a lot of people that had loyalty to him, that, you know, he basically has no, because he's still going to be pulling a lot of the strings, even though he's not like in office. Like they're like his voice is still going to resonate, unfortunately. Like it can't resonate from behind prison walls. So let's hope that happens. But
that's why we need Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Sorry to interrupt again, but
yeah, he's still going to have a lot of pull, but I think that's where we're going to happen. He's going to start to deem these people useless, and their loyalty is going to mean nothing, because that's what happens when that becomes your political identity and you tie yourself to this person. Well, if this person's out of the picture, or this person says you're no longer useful, then yeah, that's your, like, you've hitched your wagon to this and that's all you have now. So I think what Ryan said is true. We're going to see a split, and I'm really interested to see how that happens, like, because some people are like, we're going to see like some people also pull like the Marco Rubio, and like instead of being like the poster boy of like conservatism, they're going to go further right. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see like what happens.
Yeah, and I agree. And one thing that too, it's just, again, I'm baffled because this whole year I've been trying to think of it from a strategy point, and they have done it in some ways, but they really didn't for the most part, because one point I kept pushing home is that this is a census year, and to fuck about during a census year to me is just extremely questionable. I guess that they thought that they were going to be able, and I was worried about it too, they were going to be able to try to sway the election results through the Supreme Court possibly, but they handled the court proceeding so poorly. Like, all of my attorney friends were like, this is like watching the messiest of reality TV. Like, all of my friends, like law friends, were just like eating this shit up. I was having them translate it. They're like, there's no comparison for how horribly this is. It seems like it's like it wouldn't even be in a worst case scenario question on the bar exam. So it just, to me, it's just so, I guess, precarious that when so much was at stake this year. I guess they really kind of gamed on also the Supreme Court, but again, pack the court. But yeah, most of them are dumb, except for maybe Mitch McConnell, who really pulls all these strings. But Brian Kemp, I really can't wait to get you out of here. You're really dumb. Can't wait for Stacey. Ryan, I wish you could pull up my artwork of Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. But yeah, especially this election, and they're just eating themselves, and I'm really enjoying it. But my concern is that a lot of like the centrist conservatives are going to cross over the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party is going to buckle to that, instead of thinking, we need to really leading into a lot of the progressive issues, which we're going to get into later. They might give in to the conservatives that are whining, what about us, when you look at what's happened in the past 4 years. Like, my concern is that there's going to be no learning from that side. And another thing I find peculiar, again, that Republicans have such a sense of exceptionalism, and some Democrats too, that they saw what happened to Jeff Sessions and countless of Trump staffers that were just fired through tweets, essentially, and they're like, it's not going to happen to me.
I mean, a Scaramucci became a unit of measurement.
But then again, like, I thought the Alabama people would not take well to Jeff Sessions, because like they were loyal to Jeff Sessions, but they chose Trump. I think that was a real sign that people should have listened to, that because people in Alabama, like especially conservatives, loved Jeff Sessions. Let me tell you, like he ran out of post for a long time, but they loved him. They supported him, and they were so excited to see him. But the second that Trump was like, no, fuck this dude, that they were like, no, yeah, fuck this guy. Like, I think Republicans should have taken a sign right there. It's like, we're at a crossroads here, but no one learned, because they don't really care to learn. They only care to profit. So I just was very interested that no one was like, saw that and was like, So,
I mean, the second warning should have been when Sessions was beat by Tuberville in a primary. But anyway, let's transition, because I know we could spend forever on that. I do want to thank Brandon for highlighting those polls that showed Warnock ahead, simply because some of the ones that are showing Warnock up by 7 were the ones that showed the most accurate results and predictions for Biden's wins. Had him winning Georgia by less than 1%. Had him winning, I want to say it was like Survey USA, had him winning Michigan by less than 1%. So a lot of them were highly accurate. And WSB TV has also had Warnock with a major lead. I actually think, if you were to put me on the spot, that Warnock is going to win. It's a question of whether or not
Ossof will. I'm confident about Warnock, but Ossof, I'm less confident.
Because to me, I want to say this.
Dressing like a millennial, like I agree with people. Like you have to be smarter than that and know your audience.
Like I was gonna say, it's almost like Freaky Friday, because you look at John Ossoff and you're like, okay, this is the cool one, but Warnock is the cool one. So I'm actually more worried about, like, at first I was thinking it would be like an either or deal, and I still kind of think that, but I have like full confidence that Warnock can pull this off, and Ossoff, I'm like,
No, I think I agree with that. And I think Ossoff, it depends on what happens in the lead up to the election, right? As we get close to the election, what you've seen over the last few days and a couple of weeks is just a steady stream of information about Perdue's stock trade, right? Like insider trading scandal. And if that blows up just before the election, he can forget about it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that'll be the case. One thing I want.
He still needs to be a little bit smarter. Like he should be able to dress, but it's just, again, you're still in Georgia, and dressing like Beto might not help you. I don't like. You just have to be like, and people outside are like, those things don't matter, but yes, they do. As someone, like, I'm from Alabama, but it's right next to Georgia, and yes, that shit actually really does matter. You have to be as relatable as possible, okay? And it's just like with me, like, yeah, that's fine, but you still are having a lot of people that's like, I remember he's not dressed for. To you it may not matter, but to a lot of people it's stupid enough to matter.
It's super interesting to me that they've been tying themselves together, just like what you see here. Like, they've been tying themselves together. It's I guess it depends on your perspective, right? Like if you are Warnock, then and you see Ossoff's poll, maybe not. But if you Ossoff has to tie himself to Warnock in a way, so that he captures some of the same groups that Warnock is getting. So I thought that was super interesting. All of their social media stuff has been super dope.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight.
Who's sketchy peasant?
I don't know. We're gonna put the comment up in a second here. I wanted to show this off in case people can't really see it. It's a copy of the Spotify Wrapped, where they do the little presentation regarding your the songs you've played the most during the year or whatever. And what they did with this is they basically turned it into a voter information ad, right? Mm-hmm. So here's when you can register, or here's the last day to register. Here's why you need to vote, all of that kind of stuff. So just really, really good on time marketing and branding from whoever's campaign is responsible for it. I think it was Ossoff, but regardless, let's move forward. We'll go ahead and put up this comment here that everybody was laughing at, so y'all can see it.
Who is this? I need to know who this is.
Is this not Rod?
Is it?
I don't know. It might be. It might be Dorado.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very Dorado, a tame version of Dorado. Okay. Anyway. Let's move forward to what will probably be the big discussion of our hour here. And talk about the comments made by the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, over the weekend, or really over the week. I don't know what day it is right now. But Barack Obama was interviewed, and he made two key points that I think are very important to talk about. One sent Twitter in an uproar, and the other one just kind of got glossed over, sort of. But essentially, Obama came out and said that he's not a fan of the catchphrase "defund the police." And what he said is, if you believe as I do, that we should be able to reform the criminal justice system so that it's not biased and treats everybody fairly, I guess you could use a snappy slogan like "defund the police." But you lose a big audience the minute you say it, which makes it a lot less likely that you're actually going to get the changes that you want done. So as I mentioned before, this caused an uproar. Obama also praised Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying that the Democratic Party should be giving her a larger platform. But Ron, because I know that I when it came to the Twitter sphere was in agreement with what Obama was trying to say. I was trying to explain what he was trying to say, because people read the headline and ran with it. But I want you to give the side of why you disagree with Barack Obama.
I vehemently disagree, and I'll tell you why. Because you can still be right and wrong at the same time, and I feel like that's where Obama is right now. Because Courtney, Brandon, with absolutely no context, because words do mean things. With absolutely no context, if I come to you and say defund the police, what does that mean? Like just absolutely no context. Like if I say defund the police, what does that mean? Do you think I'm saying no police, abolish the police shouldn't exist? If I
Well,
say defund, then what does that mean?
I think it's the same as what it means when you defund an education program, which happens all the time.
mhm.
You
Or
take-
social services like happens
Exactly.
every single year with state budgets. As a social worker, again, because I know how words mean, D and fund, the prefix D means to remove. So I'm assuming you're removing funding.
Yeah.
Which
So
police departments already get exorbitant amounts of funding, so it's not like they're missing it. They're not. They're not.
So much of my point. What I'm saying is we're now approaching a dangerous place where much like for instance, I liken this to Kaepernick kneeling. Nate Bowler, a former NFL player, told Cap he should kneel because he was like, if you want to get your message across, do this because it's still respectful and you're still getting your point across. Kaepernick like vividly pointed out his issues, his platform. People still didn't like it. They say, well, he shouldn't do this, he should do that. And I feel like that's what's happening with defund the police.
Same thing.
You shouldn't say it like this, you should say it like that. Because when we get into that, we're having people who benefit from this system, they're actually workshopping the idea. And then what we're gonna get is we're not going to get, basically reallocation of funds. We're going to get things like, so you want more body cams, you want no chokeholds, you want this, you want that. So for now on, when someone says they don't agree with the simple term defund the police, which is as succinctly as you could say that, I'm going to ask you, well, do you support defunding the police? Because if you don't, I know your problem isn't with the framing of the message. Your problem is with the message itself. So like I said, when we get into that, I'm going to ask like your stance on this. Like, okay, like defund the police doesn't work for you, even though a large block of this voting base, the one that actually brought this election over the line, like and putting people like Cori Bush into office, they're saying this is what we want. Jamal Bowman, one of the rising stars of the party, he's saying this is what we want. So are you saying these people are wrong, or and once again, like, I will say this, to be fair, and I know I'm going on a tangent, but to be fair, I did praise Biden's platform for how he phrased things. Like, for instance, like his thing with Medicare for all was like, well, it could be a job creator. His thing with empowering Black people, he was like, well, you could be entrepreneurs. That's a big thing in the Black community, but there's no palatable way to truly say defund the police. Is a very uncomfortable conversation that this country needs to have. So basically we lose the message when we start to reframe what it means. So yeah, that's one I won't budge on at all. Like defund the police, it means exactly what it says, and there's no other way to frame that. So that's my message basically.
I have a tangent too. Just as a person who's in a public position, who faces constant budget cuts every year, and especially in the face of a pandemic, I have never been so exhausted in my life. We are underfunded, we are understaffed, and we are overworked currently. What are police? Police are not doing more than medical workers or social workers during this time. I'm sorry, fight me on it. Give me your address. I don't care. I'm speaking from my own personal experience. Yeah, I mean because like that you have to do a lot of reading into, and I'm actually on the same page as Ron, honestly, because I think it's the same people that had an issue with Black Lives Matter. It's like you really can't break it down anymore, and the people that say they have an issue with the framing, it's not the framing, it's the actual thing, and they're just trying to undermine you and take it away. So I personally think you can, it does come down to what's going, with like racial tensions and everything and police brutality. And for people to act obtuse about it after you posted a black square this summer, it's really funny to me. It's just really funny to act like that's not a major issue. But also one way, just as a social worker, that you could also frame it. It's like, okay, but think about this. So you have waited months upon months for your unemployment and you still haven't gotten it. Well, it's because of this. It's because of budget cuts every year. Your Department of Labor, because state budget cuts, even though they're continuing to give more of a budget to police departments, they're so underfunded that they can't hire more staff members. My earring falls out because I'm ready to fight. But they can't hire more staff members. So because of the pandemic, they are so backlogged that they can't touch your case. So if we remove funding from the police departments who are not doing that much additional work during the pandemic to place, and even without the pandemic, in times like, like recessions and stuff, we need it more towards social services, towards medical workers, towards other things. And I think it's just people, it's not that complicated. And I think Obama really needs to be careful, especially he's falling on a lot more scrutiny lately. A lot of people, he did say positive things about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which is good. And what he said was valid. I just think he needs to be careful about that. And I think, and I forgot which one of y'all said it, but someone said that he had, or maybe it was a comment, I think people would have listened to him more than anybody else about it. And I think if he would have given that clarity, people would have, especially like I would have voted for Obama twice type people. I think if he would have been, I think he would have been the person that people would have really actually listened to, and he blew it.
Because it's much, hold on, let me get, this is going to take a few seconds. Much like Sketchy Peasant would appreciate this, but it's much like Donovan McNabb. Right? Because he was in Philly and he was getting shitted on and he didn't say anything. But the moment that he retired, he had all these things to say. And people were like, why didn't you say this while you were in power? So for him, like Courtney said, to be a voice, an influential voice, like he really could have broken that down and say, I support what's going on here. And he could have left out the part about framing the message, because I don't think that needs to be in the conversation at all. But he really had an opportunity to really break that down, and I think he blew it. And he is under a lot of scrutiny right now. And once again, Obama is like one of the most important people in my life. Like, you don't know what it means as a black man to see another black man become the president. Like, that's huge. That's never going to be taken away from me. And
we're not saying that either. Yeah, we're not. He's
getting to a place where people are going to be like, oh, basically, okay, boomer. Yeah.
Centrists love him. That's the thing, is like centrists like see him as just like, so to help. I just really feel like he, above anybody else that I can really think of, was in a position for people to truly kind of comprehend what it means, even though it doesn't really take much. It's like, well, this is what it looks like, just like a chart, right? Like write an article or something. I just feel like it could have been much more productive. And again, it's a lot of Democrats just wagging fingers at progressive issues that the people want. And I just see it's the same exact thing, because look, it's mostly about Black people and other minorities that it makes people too uncomfortable. It's like, what do you not understand about Black Lives Matter? You understand Blue Lives Matter, but you can't understand Black Lives Matter.
So I want to butt in here.
It's a tangent.
Charles brings up a point that's kind of the issue that I want to get his point in.
Since I'm on the same wave as them, Ryan, but from a little bit different perspective, right? Like, so I think what Obama was trying to say was from a strategy perspective.
Yes.
Right. But I think he's completely off base and wrong. And I'll see from a different perspective though. So a friend of mine posted this today, and I thought it was a great history lesson. He says, for the record, we didn't get to defund the police overnight. In 2017, progressives were yelling, freedom to thrive. It was rejected, right? In 2018, they were yelling, reimagine the police. It was also rejected, right? Both seemingly positive ways to discuss police reform. And now in 2020, with defund the police, everyone is saying it's too radical. And from my perspective, it's not what's radical is just Black bodies being littered in the street, riddled with fucking bullets. At the hands of the state. I don't think that should ever happen in a democracy, in anywhere, period, but especially in a democracy. So I think people, like Courtney said, people are being deliberately obtuse about what defund the police actually means. But to state it clearly, I think what people are trying to say and what the data, I think, show is that if we properly funded communities by providing access to resources like mental health treatment, healthcare, community programs, jobs, and that pay a livable wage, there would be no need for the over-policing of neighborhoods that don't have the two keys to success in America, which are wealth and whiteness. right? So that's what I think people are trying to say when they say defund the police. And you think about the budgets of these police officers, of these police departments, right? They make up 1/3 of a lot of cities' full budgets. That is
too much.
Obscene.
Just again, I'm just gonna cut in. Like, I know a lot of us work public positions. 3 out of 4 of us do. Not to get too specific, but we know personally what it's like to have your budget continuously cut, especially in a pandemic where we are being overworked. And we're like, no raises this year. Almost got furloughed in the middle of a pandemic. Like, I'm just going to be the one to say, like, my job is one of the most important ones right now. I'm sorry. I'm not. It is one of the most important jobs right now.
It's going to be important next month if nothing happens.
And our budget got cut. Like, it's just things like that. Like, think about that. I really urge anyone that has any kind of pushback to look at what police budgets look like. And especially if you had to wait in any kind of extended period of time for your unemployment, it's because of the state budgets. It's because they were so backlogged and they couldn't hire more people. If you again, so processing times on your Medicaid application, your food stamps, it's because budgets were cut. Same thing with any kind of social service organization. It's because they're understaffed. I think people have a hard time, I'm speaking a little personally here, but people have a hard time, like, they blame the individual. It's like a whole different standard with police to any kind of other public service. It blows my mind because people are willing to blame, like, individual workers. It's like, clearly it's just your fault. And then when you try to explain it to them, like, no, it's because of the budget. If there's a bigger budget, people get higher food stamp amounts, a higher income limit, Medicaid expansion. I want to tell you, in Georgia, if you're not disabled and you don't have kids, you're not getting Medicaid. Like, and that is because Medicaid wasn't expanded. It's because of these budgets. So it all comes back to that. So I think if we could also frame it like that, because let's be 100% honest, people are not going to care about a lot of things unless it affects them. And the extremely disproportionate police budgets affect you. They really do. They really do. And people are like, well, they're underfunded. I'm like, well, maybe certain, like, rural police departments, but no, it's extremely rare. If police departments underfunded, everything else is even more underfunded. So I unless, like, you were just, rich white neighborhood, you're probably facing effects of, like, way too much of the budget going to the police. Sorry to go on another tangent, but this is, like, personal to me in the budget sense, and especially if you wanted to come for social workers. Please, again, send me your address. I'm ready.
So I want to piggyback off of that, because I think all of us are making. The point I'm going to make is very similar to the point that all of y'all are making, and it's very similar to the point that Brandon brought up in terms of, activism versus policy, right? In that, when we talk about the way that we have to go about implementing things, we talk about, if we were to have a poll right now, what party better messages what they're trying to do?
Both party, 100%.
Republican Party, right? It may not be truthful.
Okay.
It may not be factual. It may be missing information. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to policy, they know how to spin the narrative on
Patriot Act,
Right.
on their stuff,
like,
and on what we want to do. And so, what
I think, call it like with the We Love America Act, and then just defund the police.
Well, so I mean that is what I would advocate for, right? Like, I understand what Obama is trying to say, because part of that full quote was him saying that we can use the slogans or we can implement the policy. And as Brandon hinted at, or Brandon or Ron, I can't remember which one of you two talked about it, this was tested, right, over the years, and no messaging was going to work, right? So no phrase was going to work in terms of winning public opinion. What you have to do, like Courtney was saying, is you have to reroute the conversation. How does this better help you? Well, instead of mentioning the police, we should be changing the way we go about our municipal budgets, right? We know that defunding the police is a local issue. There's not really anything that the federal government can do from a funding level other than just pour federal money into other resources for cities. That's really the only thing they can do. Defund the police is a local issue. to reroute these budgets. As Joe mentioned in the comments, Orlando, Florida is 40%. The police budget is 40% of the total budget. I just looked up Snellville, Georgia, where I live. $5.3 million out of $13 million that the city operates with goes to the police. Snellville also has Gwinnett County Police that operate here. So it's a total waste of money. Now, if you want to go through the whole process,
let me live.
Process. If you want to talk about sort of what he's getting at, or what I believe he's getting at, it's that you have to win these things at local levels. You have to win over people, and you have to figure out what is the best way to win over those people. We know that these people who are moderates, who see the stuff, defund the police, and they get all offended, we know that they know what this means. So let's reframe the narrative. Let's change the conversation.
Can I challenge that just a little bit, Ryan?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
If you think about most of the Democrats who ran in this election, none of them ran on defund the police except like Cori Bush, right? And she won her race. She won her race. And so I think,
but she was going to win her race. Like that district, she was going to win.
All five Justice Dems supported that message won, though. All five.
I'm not saying you can extrapolate her win, but what I'm saying is no Democrats ran on defund the police except Cori Bush and a couple others. But they won their races, right? Like a lot of the Democrats that they are talking about who lost their races for completely different reasons, right? None of them ran on defund the police. And so I think that's just like a straw man argument that people are bringing up to say these Democrats lost their races because of defund the police. It's not true.
I don't think that's the case. Like, let me flip that back around.
I've heard that out. That people were saying.
I don't think that people who lost their races lost because of that issue, right? Like, I think it's again back to the framing of Democratic policies that may have cost people races in purple districts, not necessarily defunding the police, but when you talk about Trump turnout plus the way that centrist Democratic ideas are flipped and made into radical ideas, like that's a whole nother conversation. I honestly think if you were to ask me today and make me some kind of political strategist, which I'm not, I want to make that perfectly clear. But if you did, I would be going on the Republican tip of making this the Strengthening Our Cities Act, a Better America for All Act. Like, just lie through the shit. Like, I know we can't do that, but that's the point I'm ultimately trying to make here is that we understand that, and some of this is demographic changes, right? Like we saw in this election turnout from groups that hadn't been turning out on our end before. And so maybe the whole idea now is just to lean all the way into it and continue driving that turnout. But if you are coming from the place that Obama did, and I want to, something that Charles mentioned was basically saying, are we just seeing him for who he really is? Yes. Like we have to think about where politics were when Obama ran as a change agent, right? When he ran as somebody of radical change, how far to the right were we, right? We're still to the right a little bit, but it shifted between the Obamas, between Bernie's presidential runs or primary runs. We have seen a shift in what the left is in this country. And Obama is Joe Biden has kind of moved to the left of where Obama was. So we are seeing some of those kind of centrist democratic ideas that were just 12 years ago revolutionary aren't what they were before. So I think it is a little bit of both.
Can I kind of just push back a little bit too? I think part of it is people are just also exasperated with the hand holding of white fragility, because that's what a lot of this comes down to. And I think what the correct answer should be, yes, I support defunding the police. And let me tell you what that means so that I can fight back scare tactics. What that means is more fair budget disbursement between all municipalities. Instead of just saying, no, it's just saying, okay, outright call out the scaremongering, like kind of like what Warnock is doing was, okay, this is going to happen. Just be like, okay, address it yourself first. Yes, but this is why. Look at your own budget. All we're doing is evening out the budget. That's all we're doing. And I think that you just say, yes, I do support it, and then explain what that means. So, because I feel like that it would be a lot harder to push back on, because imagine if I said, okay, so you don't support providing more money to social service organizations during the pandemic? Just turn it around. Just say, yes, I support that. But so you support continuing to defund libraries, continuing to defund social service organizations, continuing to defund public hospitals, continuing to defund public universities. Just kind of bring it back to that. I think you could say that and then flip it on its head. But I feel like a lot of this is we're just still, again, courting just white fragility and conservatives when they have no interest, none, in working with Democrats. And I think that we need to stop with that notion. Honestly,
that's
go ahead, Brandon.
I was just gonna say that exactly, right? Like we're trying to placate people who have no intention whatsoever to ever be on your side. So no matter what you call it, you can name it whatever the hell you want to name it. It is not going to change. Their opinions are not going to change. So I say to hell with them. Go win elections and then change your shit yourself.
And we've learned that this is always it's become more about base turnout at this point. Like, I think people are decided. I genuinely think people are decided. I think possibly, do explain what it means, because it's a scare tactic. And just like, okay, when people are doing the social scaremongering, this is what this means. And this is what this is actually doing for you. Instead of saying, oh no, I don't do that. Just say, okay, turn around and like, oh, so you don't support paying healthcare workers, paying these essential workers, because that's most people are the essential workers. There's a lot of them right now, especially in a pandemic is the best time to play up these social programs. So to allow the Republicans continue to vilify socialism, which a lot of it is not socialism, just define what it is and use a lot of your ads to educate people, I think that you'd have a better chance. And that's one reason why I'm frustrated with Obama, because like I said, if anyone could have the ears of people that are on the fence, it was Barack Obama. So I just do find it disappointing. And just, what Joe said is just, I think we are moving further left, and a lot of the establishment Democrats are used to being comfortable, and they need to learn to be uncomfortable and listen to the people. So they've already made motions that they're kind of wanting to act like things are the same, and things will never be the same, because we now have fascists and QAnon people and people that are like outwardly anti-Semitic and racist in Congress, and you're acting like things are normal. They will never be normal again.
Yeah, just to add to that, first off, we missed out on Justin Jefferson, but we are in prime position for Jamar Chase, who is far superior to Justin Jefferson. So shout out. But also, basically, like I said, just to get back into this, I think how Republicans excel is because they know the conscience of this country better than the Democrats who are in leadership. So, like, as you see, a lot of their messaging actually rises up, it bubbles up and goes to the top. Like, so a lot of people, and that's how you saw this shift, right? A lot of people, like a lot of Republicans, are pushing out these messages because they're basically saying, like, this is what we wanted, basically. This is what we wanted. So why when the Democrats, when they look at, people in their party, once again, the people who got them over the line, when they say they want these things, they're like, I don't think that's what we should do. And I feel like to close my tangent out, the Democrats have to realize that a lot of people vote Democrat simply because they can't choose to see themselves vote for the other option. Mm-hmm. So the time is coming where you're gonna have to weave this stuff into the party one way or another, or you're gonna lose support. And I feel like we're really getting there. So please tell me, and to get to that, but please tell me how. Okay, and once again, like I said, I won't accept any like reframing or defund the police, but like Courtney said, I do think you can say like, okay, the social worker, you've been disrespected your entire career. How about you having more money?
I felt that in my spirit. I'm sorry.
You've been disrespected your entire career. how about more money for you? And but yeah, just these other people who feel like they've been underserved and you know and don't have the resources to conduct their job. That's how you get them on board with this. You say like, hey, you now have more resources to do these things you need to do. So there's ways to play this. So basically, I will say the message is fine as is. You say it as succinctly as possible. Like it's one bullet point: defund the police. Boom, there you go. But you can extrapolate on that by saying like, okay, this is what this means for the rest of our community, for the rest of society. So I feel like that's where we're
at. Like everyone's like so pro police, but it's just like, how about that time that you got that freaking following too closely ticket in traffic? You were not so pro police then. Like you need to call people out on their hypocrisy. It's about hating Black people. It's not about supporting the police.
You know what that means?
Look, real. You know exactly what it
personal
means.
story.
People
Personal
are gonna
story
be less
time.
offended when I say it. So
Personal
yeah.
story time. Do I look threatening to you, anybody?
Yeah, you kind
In
of
the Eagles jersey, yes.
Come on. Okay. But anyway,
my mom says you have a very sweet face. So we're gonna listen to what my mom.
Thank you, Miss Cindy. But I've in my lifetime.
I don't know who that is. CSG.
Yeah. Oh, Charles. But in my lifetime, I've been pulled over 22 times. I've been arrested once. And when I was booked at the jail, the guy was like, I don't even know why they brought you in tonight. You know why they brought me in? I was arrested on Christmas Eve to meet the quota. I had my rent money in my pocket, which was seized. So when I talk about this stuff, because I was booked because they needed me to quota and because they needed basically because I was on a cash bond too. So when I talk about this stuff, I talk about how fucked up the system is. I talk about how someone in the same cell as me who was able to get out on domestic violence through a bail bondsman, but I had to spend my Christmas in jail, because I had a parking ticket.
And let's also talk about how these white college rapists don't even have to serve jail time. That's what this is about. Again, it's not about being so pro police. It's about not caring about Black people. That's
exactly
like I feel like we really just need to call it on its head, or it's just people are going to continue to ignore it. It's the same people that are like, Black lives matter, all lives matter. It's the same people. But if you were all lives matter, then you'd be for social programs. You'd be against caging migrant children and separating them from their mothers. You'd be against taking a choice away from people with uteruses. You just would also stay out of gay people's business and let them live their lives. So you're not all lives matter. You're not pro police because you say the police. I've seen the same people. They're like, oh, there's one blue line, and then they bitch constantly when they get a ticket when they were going 90 miles per hour on the interstate, and it's just like, and
you know why? Because police aren't supposed to do that to them.
And you know what's so funny? I was thinking too. I was like, you know what? They have so many traffic cameras nowadays. Do you need people just chilling? Chilling.
I want to piggyback off of Sketchy Peasant because for those of you that don't know, ending cash bail is part of one of Biden's tenets for criminal justice reform. So if you live in Georgia, it's very important that we get Ossof and Warnock in the Senate so that can be done, as well as eliminating private prisons. And a number of other things that should not be profited on, right? Criminal justice as a whole should not be privatized in any way. There are certain segments of daily life that should not be privatized. If you want my extreme examples of all of that, that includes criminal justice, that includes healthcare, and that also includes education. But we'll get there.
I'll just say it's also extremely predatory. So my work is very close to a jail, and there were I think 6 just bail bondsmen that right by my work. So to me, that's just wild. Think about they're always by jails, just the private ones. So it's extremely predatory. So I think a lot of people just don't give a shit because it doesn't affect them. So I think the more that we call people on their bullshit, the better it'll be. You can't be comfortable anymore. You can't. Part of my family doesn't like me. I don't really care because I don't like to associate with racists. So stop bothering people on Twitter and start talking to your aunt with the weird haircut. So
please, I just want to live. Please just.
I got it. No, okay. I made it where I can't see the comments because I was on a tangent.
It's
yes. Is it Charles? I did.
Who is this? Who are you?
I don't know, but I no won't
He's
let me
been at
rest.
Ron's neck for the entire. They've been at Ron's neck for the entire.
So
entirety
if
of
you
this
see us
episode.
laughing, we're only laughing at these comments. Sorry.
It is funny because like when I got changed after work, I just grabbed the first shirt I saw, and Tammy's like, "You really gonna wear that?" I was like, "I mean, it's a shirt."
Tammy knew.
Tammy
Hashtag
knew.
Tammy knew.
Yeah, she do. Yeah.
It's
You knew you
Loki,
said you
Tammy.
told her.
It's Tammy.
It's got to be Tammy. She was waiting on it.
Nah, it's
You go in the other room and she's like,
So I do want to ask this before we get out of here today, because Biden has slowly announced parts of his cabinet, and
not Doug Jones yet, though.
not Doug Jones yet. But one of the most interesting picks to me, and I want to hear Brandon's opinion about this, is Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen, for those of you that were not aware, I think most recently she's been with the Brookings Institution, but she's going to lead the Treasury Department, and she is. I'm not going to say that she is what we were hoping. For those of us that wanted the dream of Elizabeth Warren running the Department of Treasury, Janet Yellen is a pretty good alternative to that. So Brandon, I want to hear your thoughts on her nomination, and as well as any of the other cabinet picks from Ron Klain all the way to a name that had been stuck in my head that I finally got rid of. So I'm not going to go look it up so that the name doesn't continue to circulate in my head. But tell me about how you feel about the cabinet picks so far.
I think Biden is making some pretty solid choices, even if not 100% of the people will be happy with all the picks, right? Like more women, more Black people, including more people of color, and the historic nomination of what you just said, Janet Yellen, the first woman to lead the Treasury. I think he's going to need people like the ones he's picked through these unprecedented crises, and I think he's surrounding himself around competent, capable public servants, which is a far cry from the cronies who power this the Trump administration, right? Like, I think he's making some solid choices. Janet Yellen is one of the smartest economists out there. She was one of the first ones who identified the housing bubble back in the first crisis. So I think he's making some pretty solid choices.
Yeah, to back up on that, I actually I heavily referenced a report published by the Brookings Institute when we made the Ice Cube video that you should totally watch after this. But basically, it was talking about how Biden's plan will pay for itself in 10 years. Well, now that person is running the Treasury. So to have people like that who can take these big ideas that are being called socialist and just say like, okay, this is how it benefits America. This is how America comes out on the back end of that 10 years, actually, and not in a deficit, but in a surplus. That's how these things can help us. So pretty monumental move to have someone and like I say, I mean, we all knew that Liz Warren wasn't going to be there, but
she's under a Republican governor.
Yeah,
like that would have been, I would have been angry at that move because it would have been really
we can have our pipe dream, but Janet Yellen is as good as it gets for that position. And so and in regards to the entire cabinet, I know like a lot of people are like getting angry at like certain names here and there, but across the board, it's and it's crazy that we have to say this, but to see so many women, so many people of color, so many people of diverse backgrounds in the cabinet, it's great. So I'm cool with it. And
a communication team that's all women, by the way.
Exactly, all women. Like the good old boys club is out of here. Like it's all women, and whether or not you agree with each and every pick, I mean, it's. I think it speaks volumes to what Biden is attempting to do with this administration.
To me, it was powerful for me to see that, honestly, even though, I don't 100% agree with everything, but it still matters. And I think especially if you're a white man, you really shouldn't say anything about it. Because you don't understand what it's like to finally see representation in a place that you've never seen it. So I think that's one opinion I have on that. And again, I want people who really want people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to understand they both are, if I'm correct, under Republican governors. And in a time that our Senate at best might be 50-50, we cannot play games. We cannot play games. And that's why I really urge people to just think and be realistic. Like, it would be wonderful, but they're under Republican governors in the Senate.
Interesting tidbit on the Vermont one, though, right? So if Bernie Sanders is nominated and confirmed, then the Republican governor who is named Phil Scott is actually super popular with Democrats in Vermont. Vermont's kind of a weird state. Like they love the guy.
I mean, they're mostly white, so
yeah, right. They are. He voted for Joe Biden. He does not like Donald Trump, and I think he might nominate himself, or I think he might nominate himself for Senate, and then there have to be a special election 90 days after.
Well, I just, because someone as progressive as Bernie, we can't go from that to a centrist.
He would, right? That's true, but he would definitely I think he would caucus mostly with the Democrats, but
it's hard to take chances with. That's just my opinion. I don't think we can play games. It's the only thing. Like, if Doug Jones won the scenarios, I would be like, do not take Doug Jones from Alabama. But now it's just like, it's people like Doug Jones, and I'm trying to tell people, one, he doesn't have a conflict of interest. You cannot be screaming for people that directly have been wronged by the Trump administration. They will have arguments of it's a conflict of interest. You have to play chess. You have to play chess with this. You cannot be like, oh, this would be awesome for revenge. Like, people were saying Hillary Clinton. I'm just like, can I just slap you? It's just, to you, it's more about fun games and pettiness than it is about improving the country. So like, sorry, I know I'm on a tangent, but
you're good.
I'm just asking people to be pragmatic.
I wanted to answer Jonathan's question real quick. What Brandon was referring to, if somebody were to, be removed from a Senate seat for whatever reason, whether they retire, step down, or get appointed to a new position, governors assign somebody to hold the seat temporarily until a special election can be held. And every state has different rules on when a special election can be held. So for Vermont, it has to happen 90 days after. I don't
know. I think it's 90 days.
Well, it has to happen a certain amount of days after the appointment. Georgia, Johnny Isaacson retired, and Loeffler was able to fill the seat until a special election could be held this fall. So she held the seat for basically 11 months, technically, or no, she'll hold the seat for a year.
To do damage.
Yeah, and so it's how Mark Kelly just won his seat because Martha McSally was appointed after John McCain's passing. So all these different every state has different rules. But basically, a governor appoints somebody temporarily to hold it until a special election can be held. But that's why you're seeing so many of these seats. Like, Georgia's not supposed to have 2 Senate seats up for election, but Isaacson stepped down. And a point I wanted to make earlier, speaking of Isaacson, that Loeffler has failed to do, and that I don't think a lot of people realized with him. Isaacson was a regular at Ebenezer for MLK Day, for Black History Month. He was a regular there. And he was able to actually get some Black folks in the congregation to vote for him because he did a lot of outreach. It's very important that we remember those kind of things, right? It's very important that we remember for Warnock's sake and all these other, all these other people that are running, that outreach is important. But right now it's about strengthening the base, right? Isaacson was able to pull votes in a state that really didn't have hope of going blue in the past, or wasn't as close as it is now. And so now you do have that situation. And I think it really speaks to the damage that Perdue and Loeffler and Republicans here are doing by trying to just hold on to a diminishing base. Because we're going to look up in 4 or 8 years, and the population split now in Georgia is probably going to look like Gwinnett County or Snellville. Or
Everyone's moving to Georgia. Everyone's moving to Georgia. And that's one thing I think we need to make note of. It's like these people aren't appearing out of nowhere. They're moving from states like Michigan, the Rust Belt states. And like that's
they're moving out of the Midwest.
And that's why I'm trying to tell people, like, they're like kind of like, hey, let's make fun of the southern states. It's like, no, a lot of your blue votes are moving here. So I think people are going to really make note of that. You're going to see them turn more red, and states like Georgia turn more and more blue. So like I said, people aren't appearing out of nowhere. So it's going to be interesting.
Any final thoughts? Because I've got a toddler who keeps pulling off his pull-up.
Leave Georgians alone. I'm tired. I will literally fight you. Alyssa Milano, if you show up to my front door, I will literally spray bottle you. I'm tired of you. Please leave. I can't know peace. When it was Doug Jones, and now it's just everywhere I move, there's a special election. All I want is peace. Just leave us alone. give us your money, donate to Georgian food banks, donate to good causes, donate to the campaigns. Just don't tell us what to do and don't act like you know more than us. It's really condescending. And it's the same exact kind of elitism that led people to not vote for Democrats. So please just stop. You don't know better than Georgians. Georgians are actually focused on our issues, yes, but just shut up, give us your money or tax bank. I don't care. I'm tired of you.
The final thing I would say is, yeah, shut up, leave Georgians alone. But Georgians, three key dates I want you to know. December 7th is the deadline to register to vote. If you are not registered to vote, please go do that right now. December 14th, early voting begins. So early vote begins December 14th, and January 5th is election day. We need you to vote.
You can early vote. You can absentee.
Absolutely. Early vote December 14th. Do it.
Just
all I gotta say is shout out to Jalen Hurts. That's my last comment. Shout out to Jalen Hurts, my future starting quarterback.
Just leave Georgians alone.
Shout out to Ray Nagin too, by the way.
Shout out to Ray Nagin too.
Shout out to Ray Nagin. Yeah, my final thoughts for today is I do want to say that it's very important that we continue to be actively engaged in what's going on politically, even beyond January. I know we're all tired. We are exhausted. We really don't want to, I do not want to hear anything about politics for the next 3 weeks, but I'm going to be forced to. I'm going to do it all the way through January 5th. I'm going to take a nice 15-day break after that and wait for Joe Biden's inauguration. But I want people to kind of get an idea of what we got coming down the pipeline, or what some of the things that we're trying to do. We are looking into a couple of different ways to take the podcast. We're going to, of course, continue on with the political angle, but we're looking at some special projects down the line we're very excited about pursuing. But we're going to take a break after the runoffs, probably for a couple of weeks, and then we are for sure going to pick back up probably sometime around February. But we're going to take a break. Right, it's been a long season. We've been going pretty much every week since May. At least Ron and I every week since May. Courtney jumping in June, and then us dragging Brandon in here sometime in July or August. We have done a lot lately. So we're gonna have a couple of. I think we have one potential guest that is down the pipeline. She's an organizer in Alabama. We're solidifying a date. But other than that, it's going to be us bugging you for an hour, and then we'll go from there. So thank you for continuing to support us is my point, the point that I want to make. Make sure you subscribe to us on Spotify, on Apple, on Radio Public. We're in the process of creating a master feed for the Kids Wear Crowns. So if you don't quite know what you want to listen to from us, you can just go in that master feed and listen to on last week's episode, or on, or Don't Call Us a Podcast, or whatever else that we're doing, because we've got like 1,000 things going on. So thank you for the continued support. We really appreciate y'all. The episode will be up probably tomorrow-ish. We'll figure it out. But thank you all, and have a wonderful night.
Peace.
Peace.